with a meeting of an audit presentation.
And we have Kelly Gooderham from Martin Starnes here to do that for you this evening.
Okay.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Kelly Gooderham. I'm the Audit Senior Manager for the City of Belmont Fiscal Year 21 Audit. We have prepared the following PowerPoint to present what we feel to be some of the more pertinent topics of the city's Fiscal Year 21 audit. We have issued a clean, unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion we can provide. The city's report has been submitted to the LGC, and we are still awaiting LGC approval as of this afternoon. Next one. So first, we will go over the general fund revenues and expenditures. There was an overall increase in overall revenues of $1.7 million, which was primarily due to an increase in ad valorem tax revenues over the prior year, as well as an increase in overall expenditures of $1.6 million, which was primarily due to an increase in debt service, capital outlay, and various public safety expenditures. So this slide just shows the 5 classifications of fund balance for local governments. First, we have your non-spendable, which is not in cash form. Your restricted fund balance, which is an external restriction imposed by grantors or laws and regulations. Then we have your committed fund balance, which is internal constraint issued at the board level. And then assigned fund balance, which is also an internal constraint, but such that is a lower level as committed. And then finally, your unassigned, which has no external or internal constraints. So this slide just describes a calculation that the LGC utilizes for comparing units across the state. It's your available fund balance. And in a couple of slides, we'll put numbers to those, so it's specific to the city. So here's a 3-year comparison of your total general fund balance. There was an overall increase in fund balance of $3.7 million, which was primarily due to long-term debt issued, as well as transfers from other funds, in addition to the overall increase in revenues and expenditures, as previously mentioned. So here's your available fund balance calculation, as previously mentioned. We start with total fund balance of $10.3 million, less your non-spendable, which includes inventories of $31,000, less your stabilization by state statute of $1.2 million, less restricted for streets, which is your PAL bill, of $247,000, less your restricted reserve for USDA loans of $7,300, and then less your working capital fund balance policy of $3.8 million to arrive at a total available fund balance for fiscal year 21 of $4.9 million, which was an overall decrease over the prior year of $79,000. It is noted that the working capital line item is an internal policy implemented by previous council members. So this is not obviously something that the LGC takes into account. So this calculation is a little differently than how it would show up in your data input sheet that is issued to the LGC. This is included for internal purposes, and obviously if it was excluded, you could kind of take and add $3.8 million to your overall available fund balance. Next one. So another calculation utilized by the LGC to compare units across the state is your available fund balance as a percentage of expenditures and transfers to other funds. There was an overall decrease over the prior year of 4%, which was due to obviously a decrease in your available fund balance and an overall increase of your expenditures over the prior year. So now we'll go through your top 3 general fund revenues and expenditures. First, we have your ad valorem taxes, which increased $759,000 or 8%, which was just basically due to an increase in overall collections over the prior year. Then we have your unrestricted intergovernmental revenues, also increased around $761,000 or 19%, which was due to an increase in your local option sales tax distribution from the state, which was fairly common amongst most local governments in fiscal year 21. And then we have your sales and services, which increased around $169,000 or 22%, which was due to a sale of property as well as an increase in solid waste fees. Next, your top 3 general fund expenditures. First, we have your public safety expenditures, which increased around $507,000 or 9%, which was mostly due to an increase in salaries and related benefits and a few other various line items that saw smaller increases over the prior year. Then we have your transportation expenditures, increased around $72,000 or 4%, which was due to improvements in street lighting line items. And then your general government expenditures decreased around $162,000 or 9%, which was due to a decrease in various miscellaneous expenditures as well as salaries and benefits. So now we'll go over a couple of details of the water sewer fund. Cash flow from operations ended at $1.3 million. Total net position ended at $46.5 million. Your unrestricted net position, which is the equivalent of your unassigned general fund balance, ended at $2.2 million for an overall change in net position of $2.2 million. So the LGC is now requiring certain information to be presented to the board for each audit. This information comes from the LGC's data input sheet, which is prepared and sent with the city's audit report each year. So first we have your quick ratio for the water sewer fund, which includes your current assets and your current liabilities as they are presented on the financial statements. LGC is normally concerned with a quick ratio of less than 1. So for 2021, it ended at 3.49 as opposed to 1.42 in the prior year. So city has bounced back just a little bit regarding this ratio. More information from the LGC's data input sheet. This is your water sewer fund operating net income or loss as it is calculated by the LGC's data input sheet. This differs from the operating net income or loss that you would see on your financial statements because this excludes depreciation and includes your debt service principal, whereas your financials do not. The primary reason for the significant change over fiscal year 20 to 21 is, again, because principal payments or all debt service expenditures are included in this calculation, and the city paid off 2 loans in the current year. For fiscal year 22, it is assumed and probably expected that this ending amount will be a little bit more comparable to probably what you guys are more accustomed to. Fiscal year 21 was a little out of the norm because of those 2 loans. And a couple more information or a couple more topics about the LGC's data input sheet. We are required to notate any audit findings to the board. There were 5 material weakness findings noted in the city's financial statements. The city is required to submit responses to the LGC regarding all of these findings within 60 days of this audit presentation. Finance will be happy to assist with all of that, but each council member is required to sign said response and then issue to the LGC. Okay, so a couple of fun facts. Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or otherwise known as GASB, they were created in 1984. They were established for, they are responsible for establishing accounting and financial reporting standards for local governments that follow GAAP. There were only 2 years in which the GASB standards were not issued since 1984. That was 1985 and 2014. Which means that there's an increase in complexity of reporting standards as well as the workload required to implement said standards. 40% of all GASB standards have been issued within the last 10 years, so you can imagine a lot of complex new things, a lot of work involved, both on finance as well as auditing firms. In addition to the new GASB standards, local governments have received several new funding grants, several new federal grants with complex compliance requirements, specifically ARPA and CARES in previous years. And just to illustrate, here are a few of the ones that have been recently implemented and some that are coming down the pipeline. Some of these do not apply to the city. Most of them do. The one that is implemented in fiscal year 22 is GASB 87 related to leases. I believe Jared has already started the process of working towards implementing this, but it's pretty, complex. It's going to be a lot of fun, regardless. And yeah, question time.
Yeah. Can you go back a few slides,
Sure.
like to the one more? That one. Yeah. So let's see. Can you describe more of these violations disclosed in the
Sure.
footnote?
Yeah. So, like I said, there were 5 material weaknesses, 4 of which were similar to how they were in fiscal year 20's audit. One of them was new. Most of these related to staff turnover. If you have a lag in financial reporting, then a lot of these things, obviously is as a result of that. So, with any staff, key financial staff turnover, it is unfortunately fairly common for findings to occur when you don't, have consistent staff and consistent resources. So, yeah. But they are all in your audit report at the end of your audit report, included in your schedule of findings, responses, and question costs.
Do we get copies of that?
You will have copies of them. We don't usually issue them until the LGC has
I see.
approved, but yes, yes.
Okay. And can you go back a couple more? The ratio. It's assets versus liabilities. Okay. I just wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
Quick,
Yeah, sorry.
That's all
I
right.
did have a question
Sure.
for this slide. The $5 million difference between the assets and the liability, actually both of them, is that a big? That feels like a big move, but
It's probably a big move. So I mean, it's definitely a big move. But so this is taking into account current assets, current liabilities. So it doesn't have anything to do with long-term debt, non-current assets, things of that nature. So, last year you guys paid off two loans. Obviously, cash probably went down as a result of it. So this slide is actually a little misleading because it kind of looks like you guys are not improving, but I mean the actual ratio itself has improved. So I know it's a little misleading.
Now you said like less than one is concerning. What is considered healthy in this situation? Would you consider 3.5 or 3.49 healthy, or is there a certain standard from an audit perspective?
There's not, because in any given year, it just depends on what you all have going on.
Mm-hmm.
This could bounce right back next year if you've increased cash in the water and sewer fund. And the reason why there is such a difference in this one is because you have far less current liabilities than you did last year, as opposed to obviously there's also a decrease in your current assets as well. But the gap between the two has caused the ratio to increase.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
Where you from, Kelly? Originally?
Originally, Colorado.
Colorado?
I grew up in Florida.
Huh?
I grew up in Florida.
Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask a question that might not be necessarily in the presentation, but I was just wanted a little bit of insight. So as I understand it, we included the DBDA, the Downtown Belmont Development Association, as a component unit. I was curious as to sort of what led to that decision in terms of the fact that it's sort of been set up this way and has continued this way since its inception in 2015. Mm-hmm. So was the impetus behind in 2021 deciding that it needed to be a component unit?
Well, so for each audit each year, we read through board minutes. We have planning meetings. We have discussions with management, with finance throughout the year. And the board meeting minutes is basically the way I see it, it's kind of a catch-all.
And
You know,
can
that's
the board, which board? Our
your
council meeting? Okay.
Yes. Your board, the TDA board, because we also audit the TDA, obviously. So I cannot speak to, anything that occurred prior to this, but it was on my radar when I noticed in the minutes something about Downtown Belmont Development Association for auditing eyes, that sounded like a component unit. And so I inquired. Jared and I, we worked through the component unit checklist, and because of certain imposition of will that the city council has on DBDA, that's when it was deemed to be a component unit. And each year we do ask, if there's any new component units, during our planning meeting. That planning meeting is always with management and finance. We have another one at final. So honestly, cannot speak to why it was just now caught, but that's how it came about.
Okay, thank you.
So is it our appointment of the board that makes them a component unit?
Essentially, yes. That was one of the biggest determinants was, no, you don't. Yes, in a nutshell.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. That last slide, by the way, has my contact information. Should you guys have any other questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me, as well as, Jared and Kevin has my contact information if anything comes up.
Well, thank you
so
for
much.
all the work with this and for working with us as we try and get the 2022 audit finished as quickly as possible. I'm assuming someone else is involved with that, not you.
No, you're stuck with me.
Oh, wow. All right. I thought they might have changed them up every.
No, that is at your discretion if you so choose to go that route. But we try for consistency with auditing teams as much as possible. It just helps with to expedite the process if your audit manager or your audit partner has history. But if that is something that you.
That's fine. I just know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I thought I had read somewhere that they altered, they switched things around to be sort of.
There are some boards that prefer that, and we do try to accommodate that if that is your preference. Otherwise, we try for consistency just because it just helps with the process. It's easier when you have client history.
Sure.
So.
Well, it's fresh in your mind.
Oh, yes.
Since we just so we appreciate that and all the further assistance to try and get this third audit done right quick. So
Amen.
we appreciate it.
Yep.
Amen.
Jamie, can we get a copy of this PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm going to attach it to the minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All right, Kelly. Next item on the agenda is city manager recruitment plan discussion.
When you had your December 5th meeting during other business, a question came up, I think maybe Councilman Heffron, about the process. And so we put this on here tonight to have some discussion about that going forward. Given that this is the holiday season, this would probably not have been the time we wanted to have been advertising anyway, because people just don't pay attention to them at this time of year. But coming up first of the year, that would be the time to really get into the process. And as you do that, there are really a number of decision points that you'll have to make going forward with this. For example, do you want to extend a search nationally, regionally, North Carolina? I mean, that's one of the factors you would need to give some thought to. One of the major ones would be whether or not you utilize outside assistance. And I know there's been some feelings expressed about that, but I just wanted to put that on the table because I think there are certainly some advantages that are provided to you to do that beyond strictly doing an in-house process. I've given you some materials. There are two primary firms that do this work in North Carolina, Developmental Associates out of Chapel Hill, and Mercer Group they're actually out of Athens, Georgia, although they have North Carolina representatives that work with them. I've provided a list of towns or cities that they have done search work for over the past several years in North Carolina. The Mercer Group list is much shorter because on their material, on their website, they only listed current searches, not past searches, where Developmental Associates listed all of their work. So you can see, I mean, there's a broad range of both city size and jurisdictions across the state in all regions that have used these firms. Cramerton just went through the process with Mercer. So that's a local reference if you wanted to talk to any of their officials there about how they felt that process went, utilizing that firm. And they've just finished that and I think last week announced their.
Do you recommend using Developmental Associates?
I'm not recommending a particular firm. Centralina also provides that service if for some reason that was an option you preferred over a private firm. But they're going to give you a broader range of services across the board. I mean, these groups have handled hundreds of searches over time, not just managers, but a number of key positions. One of the things they have to offer is because of their contacts through all their prior work, they have a good feel for talking to, if you want to use the term, candidates who may not even be looking for a position, but the firm may think your jurisdiction may be a good fit for this person if they were interested in looking at an option. So they have those kinds of contacts too. I've given you a couple sample documents, one from each group of the type of brochures they're going to put together on your jurisdiction to send out to solicit interest in your community and in your position. So it goes well beyond what you see in just the job description that you got, because they're going to talk about community aspects. There's a sample that Jamie's put up of some Belmont information that's been utilized. This is not obviously a manager search, but the type thing that could go into that. But they're going to incorporate that into that document along with the job description and what they would probably refer to as a candidate profile. The job description is really, it's oriented on the job focus, experience, duties. The profile is going to be much broader. It's going to talk about values, personality, communications, things of that nature, where they're really looking at being sure that the person not only has the background and experience, you'll find a lot of those, but are they the right fit for your community and for the right fit for working with the board or the council. So those are some of the considerations when you go forward with this process. So that's why we wanted to put that out there for you this evening, is as we get closer to that time to give you that option of thinking how you really want to go about this.
Have we used Centralina before, Bear?
Was I with Centralina? I never worked for Centralina. I worked for a COG over in the eastern part of the state at one time, but when I was hired here, it was Centralina that ran the process at that time.
Yeah. Do we have like an average cost of what it is to utilize one of these?
I would say
agencies?
$25,000.
25,000.
I see where on development we talked about King Mountain, they just hired a manager, they used them.
Yeah.
They're not on this one.
Right. Oh, that's right. That one just finished. Yeah.
You see what they hired, right?
Yeah, I did.
Have we used any of these in the past, Mercer Group or anything like that?
To my knowledge, Belmont's
We've
never
not.
used either of these firms.
Okay.
I'm not sure when Mercer's been around a good while. Developmental Associates is a more recently created firm, although they've been around some number of years now, but I don't think they were in existence when I was hired here.
You talking about Mercer?
No, Developmental Associates.
Development Associates, yeah, okay.
And back then, Central Ina was really pressing that as more one of their core functions that they offered to their members back then. Although there was certainly would be a charge with Central Ina as well.
That's Kelly Weston.
Kelly Weston would, I don't know who on their staff handles that particular aspect, but she is one of the staff members.
I mean, do you feel like Central Ina can do a competent job?
I think that's something that we'd probably want to have a discussion with them about. Like I say, I know they used to do a lot of those. I'm not sure, just because I've not been in need to know that lately, how many they still do and how frequently and to what extent.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in knowing the level of services or in the detail that they go into compared to the firms. And I do know different firms have different approaches. Developmental Associates uses a different approach from Mercer in terms of the overall process they put the candidates through. So that's something else in terms of weighing those options. Maybe what you think is a more valid or worthwhile process. One other option that's always open to you is to have someone from the League of Municipalities just talk to you in general about the process. I mean, they'll certainly be glad to come do that at any point, whether it's your next meeting, retreat, whatever that may be, but just to give you their take from what they see across the state and over the years on the handling of these processes. Not that they will not do that process, but they would just give you some background and advice on going forward with that.
Well, I mean, I think we should have some discussion and make some, or come to some conclusions. Time's a wasting.
Well, I think that's what this is for,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Well, the only comment, I mean, I don't know what you all think, but I mean, I guess the first thing I'd like to resolve is, are we going national, regional, or North Carolina? I mean, my take on it is we have problems here that may not be unique to our area, but somewhat unique. I mean, my initial reaction would be regional or North Carolina. I don't know how you all think about that.
I'd be North Carolina.
North Carolina.
I just see.
I'm fine
I
with-
think
I'm
one of the
fine with
worst,
that.
is I'm getting somebody who might be fully qualified from like New Hampshire or Arkansas and comes here and just doesn't know anything about how things are done and just doesn't mesh with us or the community. And they might be very qualified, but they're not. I mean, I like, it'd be like Rich Rodriguez at Michigan or something that,
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, even if you got somebody from South Carolina, I mean,
Yeah.
our systems of government are so different.
The one thing I would say about the regional option is that you've got a number of managers currently in South Carolina and Virginia particularly that have worked in North Carolina and kind of have gone maybe from one to the other and would have knowledge of North Carolina. And you're so close to South Carolina as well. There's some in the York, Lancaster area that have worked in North Carolina.
I mean, we could say North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia.
And that's really, I mean, you're not saying you're limiting,
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody sees it, they can apply, but
Yeah.
that's where you could focus the advertising, recruiting.
I mean, I'm fine with you want to go tri-state.
Yeah, that's fine.
That works for me as well. Just narrowing it down to because I'm sure there's a lot of qualified candidates out there, but to look at our timeline and our process. I mean, not to limit ourselves, but
Yeah.
I think that would be appropriate.
And that would also, if you go to whether it's Central Line or one of the firms, that would help them focus those efforts as well.
Okay.
If they know that up front.
All right, so our search area will be North Carolina primarily, North, South, and Virginia.
I guess that begs the second question then.
In-house or external?
Yeah,
As far as what we do here.
yeah.
So when it comes to let's just kind of look at it from if the city did it versus one of like Developmental Associates or Mercer. When we talk about posting the job, is there like, again, excuse my ignorance on this. I know it's not just on the LinkedIn or, stuff like that where you would find more of like private sector. Is there other sites that they have access to that we do not have access to?
I mean, there are sites out there. They have access to contacts that we don't have access to.
Okay, so it's the contact.
We have access to the sites such as Virginia and South Carolina both have municipal associations, such as we have the league, and they post positions in their publications. The National Managers Association you could publish, but then you're going to get that broader range of candidates. But the firms have those contacts that an in-house search wouldn't give you. That's one of their prime benefits, as well as the broader process. They're going to have the background and knowledge of putting people through.
And as far as filtering applicants, I guess, is that something that we would rely on this group, or is that something
they would be your initial filter? I mean, because you'll get a number of applicants or applications that really wouldn't even actually meet the qualifications. They're going to filter those out and limit it down to a certain number that they would bring to, if you chose to use a subgroup of the council to serve that purpose, or all of you to then vet that reduced number of applications to come up with a list of finalists to consider. But they would also do, the background checks, the references, and they do those fairly extensively, I can assure you. Just from looking at what I saw, I served on a panel for Cramerton's process, an interview panel, and seeing the amount of material that they had provided already in the research before the candidate even arrived there for an interview.
So if we did, just one more, if we did go with, let's just say, and again, I'm just hypothetical, one of these hiring agencies, what would the process look like in regards to timeline? And would it be they come, they talk to us, and then
they would come and talk to you to give you some information on their typical process, but they, more importantly, they'd want feedback from you on verifying that worked for your situation, and if there were any particular aspects of their search process that you wanted to focus on or add to, things of that nature. But they would certainly come and talk to you and meet with you to finalize any agreement.
Okay.
And then, as I say, there's also the option to hear from the league if you wanted to talk to them, their representative, about that process. And in the interim, we can also check with Central Line and see how they operate their search processes now.
So you got to put out a filler?
Well, it's not putting out any kind of feeler on the position at this point. It's more just getting the information about the services that are available so you can decide which way you really want to go with it.
Okay.
I think as a member of COG, we might as well investigate.
Oh, sure.
That option.
No, I would actually definitely recommend you see what they have available.
All right.
And we can do that prior to your next meeting.
Yeah.
No, their reach extends beyond their membership, of course.
Oh yeah, I mean, they would provide that. Oh yeah, and they'd probably even provide the service beyond the membership too if somebody wanted them.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Before, I mean, to get to your point, kind of get a direction here. So
Yeah.
Centralina, so we reach out to Centralina. Is that kind of the first step?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Well,
just,
now, when I say I was going to reach out, my thought was to reach out to see how their process is working now, how they conduct it, get a sense of the pieces of the process that they use compared to what I know these other firms use, and kind of put together a little comparison so you'd know how those different options operate that process.
Yeah, I think we could like compare, you know, like the service offerings, I guess, for lack of a better word, between the three.
Yeah, because as I say, just those two firms do somewhat noticeably different processes.
The guy Cramerton hired from Tryon, right?
Yes.
so then I guess could we see, like, to Mark's point, so developmental, Mercer, and then Centralina, and then just kind of their
their
one-page
approach,
executive
yeah,
summary
of
that-
how they
Yeah.
go
and then
about
we
it.
just go directionally.
And then you can look at that and see if you feel one of those options works best for your situation.
So I'm assuming with that, we do not want to do this completely internal. Again, I'm just sparking the conversation so that we can go ahead and determine
And I think
potentially.
there's some value in having a firm do like some of the grunt work on like background checks and procuring applications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would have been my only question. If we did it in-house, do we have the capacity or the manpower to really do in-depth background checks?
Well, and that and the time required
Yeah.
to put into that, I think you'd be well served to look at using some assistance to do that.
Yeah, but then as far as like actually like being very involved in the selection
Mhm.
process, once you kind of
Yes.
filter out the people who
Oh,
only ever worked
you'll
at,
be
like,
very
Burger King or
involved.
whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, we're just using them to thin the herd and make sure that these people don't have anything in their background which would come back to bite us.
And that's very
then-
much a part of what they would
Yeah.
provide for you.
Once they do that, they present us a stack,
Yeah.
and then we would take a day and just
Yeah.
go through
Yeah,
who we want to
they'll
interview.
set up. I mean, they would carry it through. They'd arrange all the interviews schedule with you. Cramerton did two panels. They did the council served as a panel, but they also had a panel of retired managers, three of us that sat in and interviewed all the
You've been
candidates
through this a few times, haven't
a few times, and we just provided our input to the board, and as they were going about their discussions to make their decision. So, you're the bottom line. You make that call in the end result. So you're very much going to be part of that process.
I would like to just make a suggestion ahead. I mean, and if anyone doesn't want to do it, then you don't have to. But I would probably prefer we all participate in the panel as long as everyone
Yes.
wants to, so that we're all directionally going in the same movement, I guess, forward.
We're all on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think is realistically what would be on tap for our next meeting would be the three.
That's what we will.
Yeah.
That's what we'll shoot to have for you. Is
Okay.
we'll contact each one of the three and ask them to just give us a breakdown of the services and the steps in their process, so that you'd have that to look at comparatively and see if you feel one works better for
And
you
then
than another.
Maybe at the meeting we could get a sense of one over the other and
Make a selection.
make a selection, and then have them come.
Yes, come to your workshop. In
Come
January.
well, if we even wanted to wait, maybe let's see what we decide, because I don't know, because our meeting's going to be a week later in January, a regular
The
meeting,
regular
and then the
meeting. The workshop will be the very next Monday.
Oh, but that's Martin Luther King Day, isn't it?
Oh.
I think the workshop is
Yeah.
a week later too. So I don't know if I want to wait till
that
the
was
end
a
of
week.
January.
Well, okay.
But we haven't scheduled our retreat yet either,
That's true.
because we usually do that like the third
Third or fourth week
weekend.
of January.
Yeah, that was going to be another discussion at the January meeting.
Yes.
Well, I think you're right. Our next meeting, let's
Mhm.
vet the options. At the end of the meeting, have a decision
Yeah.
on which way we want to go, so we can let Barry move
Yeah, I
forward.
mean, yes, you want to move quickly and
Right.
get this
Yeah.
moving, but you don't want to move too quickly that
Yeah.
you
Right.
cut out.
Yeah.
some
But
of
I
the
feel like
steps.
we've been sort of not, I think we've lost a couple months at least one, since we found out that we'd be needing to do this. So
Well, again, I have seen from past experience this time of year to try to
Well,
get
yeah.
people's attention.
So, I mean, there's
just as a
nothing,
priority.
I'm not,
Yeah.
you know, realistically, nothing's going to happen between now
Yeah.
and the next meeting. The most realistic thing is we're going to get the 3 side-by-side comparisons and then discuss and hopefully make a decision at the January
Yeah.
meeting.
And then at the next meeting, have them come present. Oh,
January 23rd.
If you needed to, we could amend that at the January meeting if you wanted to do it on that Tuesday after, well, it'd be Wednesday, because Maryland works Tuesday for
Mhm.
so it'd be,
Well, I could, Tuesday evenings, I'm fine.
okay, so essentially if you wanted to, we could do an adjustment to that resolution if you wanted to move it to the 17th, which is the day after Martin's Day.
I think that would be appropriate.
And the
That's-
point of that meeting would be to meet with whoever we select at the regular meeting.
I'm assuming.
Yeah,
I don't,
If we can line that
Yeah.
up, obviously that
Yeah.
would
I
be,
mean, I don't think we have anything set for that workshop, do we?
I don't have any specific items at this point.
So
Not that you don't have a number of things to talk about.
Specifically said anything.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the 27th?
17th.
17th. So January, pick this, make the selection, then the January regular council meeting, January workshop, have the presentation, and then I guess from there they hit the ground running and we start the process.
That would be the goal.
So are you want to move it to the 17th then? I have to change that date.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
okay if that's okay with that.
I have
That seems to
nothing
be all right.
Let me look.
Barry, is that based on your experience? I mean, is that too aggressive a timeline, or is that?
I mean, it's aggressive, just not so much, well, I think the selection, going through the selection of the firm, I mean, it's an aggressive schedule. I'm not saying you can't beat it. We'll try to see how much information we can get that you'll have on hand for January 1st. I'm sure they would each say they would love to come in and give you a presentation, which
Oh, yeah.
you may not want to go through, but that's your decision as well.
How full is our agenda looking for the January meeting?
I'm in January meeting.
The planning,
Yeah, I looked at Shelley Danson.
one planning thing, I think, text amendment.
Well, if it's
Yeah,
the
how many
one I
special
think
use
it is,
permits
that
do
might
we
have
have?
some discussion behind
Yes.
it.
I mean, street acceptance, that's consent agenda.
I mean, if the regular agenda is pretty light and
I
these
mean, we can
firms are
see if we
available,
can get representatives to,
yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to
if
that.
they're interested
Well,
in doing that.
Could we do it again? I'm just throwing this out there because I like with the architectural firm. Didn't we do that a little bit earlier? Like start at 4 o'clock. And not looking for a long meeting, but didn't we start earlier? Have the reps come in, give us
yeah.
their
Give them
spiel.
each an assigned
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah,
That's
and
an option.
then we went into the regular meeting.
And we controlled it, say, what did we say, like half
It
an
was very
hour,
controlled, yeah.
which was like 15-minute presentation and 15 minutes for questions, or 20 and 10 or something like
I mean, I
that.
like that format.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you gave them enough time to make their pitch and whatever
Mhm.
viable questions we had.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as we don't do it on January 6th, that's the whole thing.
So it's January 9th is your regular meeting.
Right.
Okay.
So are you not, okay, so just so I'm following this, you want to do that, so what I had written down that you wanted the comparison at the January 9th meeting. Were you guys still
I think so, but we're
schedule
anticipating,
interviews for the 9th?
well, we thought, I think where this is going is that we talked about the side-by-side, and it was anticipated that the firms might want to present along with whatever, am I right?
That's my assumption. If-
Okay.
When they're contacted and asked for that information, I'm sure the response is going to be, well, we'd love to come talk to you directly about it.
And that would be at our city council meeting.
Right,
Yes.
so that's not at the workshop.
Yeah.
We were
Right.
talking about
Yeah.
two different
Sure.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
earlier meeting.
Yeah.
So do you still want, if you're condensing the timeline you're doing, and like, you still want to move the workshop to the 17th, if you're doing it earlier?
Well, if they're going to come in and present on the 9th, I mean, how much time after that do we need to digest it and make a decision?
Well, that's what I guess what I was kind of thinking was
Yeah.
we could make a selection at the regular meeting on the 9th. And then I guess we could use the workshop to sort of discuss strategy or whatnot with the firm that we select.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to do on the 17th.
All right.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that
I mean,
would
typically
work.
I felt like we've had our January workshop on the Tuesday. Oh, but I understand. Yes, I understand.
But, and again, now, for the regular January meeting, would that be like a special session again before the council meeting? Would that be
I would
okay?
think I think it would have to be, because we have to be focused and
Yeah.
not have a room full of distraction.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
We get somebody to bring us some pizza in too.
yeah.
So we'll do that as a special meeting,
4 o'clock.
on the 9th.
Run those half-hour segments.
Yeah, 4:30,
Which
4:35.
include these two firms, but with
And
COG
COG.
also.
January
COG.
17th at what time?
No, that 4 o'clock will be on the 9th, January 9th, 4 o'clock.
9th.
And then you have your regular meeting that night at 6.
Okay.
And then we'll reschedule, I'll update the resolution from January to the 17th at 4. That
Okay.
sound like the right plan?
Sounds.
Yeah.
All right. We'll make a move to go into closed session.
Are we good with?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
You good?
Sounds good.
Is that
Thank you.
everything on our regular?
I think so.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
No, I
So I'll, at Charlie's suggestion, I'll move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A3 to consult with the city attorney regarding